Deadpool is overrated.
Lost your mind. You have lost your mind. You have lost.
Man, it's been quite a while since we've done one of these. So if you're new to the channel, hi, welcome. So back in the gap, we used to have a thing we do on the channel called Unpopular Comic Book Movie Opinions. And the last time we had an entry in this series was back in September of 2021. And the reason I kind of discontinued this series is because a lot of the opinions got pretty repetitive, but now a lot has happened in the comic book sphere that I think it warrants a brand new entry in this series. So I put out a post asking you guys, what are your unpopular opinions in the comic book world? And after scrolling through nearly 400 comments, I was able to find some new takes that we haven't talked about before. And so sit back, relax, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these opinions.
Putin uses the N-word.
Ben Affleck's Batman suit is the best Batman suit we've ever gotten in live action. That's not even like an unpopular opinion, that's just a fact. Even people who don't like Ben Affleck's Batman admit that his suit goes hard as fuck. The 2000s Fantastic Four movies are not only underrated, but better than most of Marvel Phase 4.
You know, let's not take the piss here.
I certainly wasn't.
Well, I think you.
Yeah, the Fantastic Four movies from the 2000s are kind of fun and can be genuinely entertaining because of just how like goofy and silly they are. But just like most of Phase 4 of the MCU, they're also not that good. So really it's kind of like pick your poison. Besides the fact that he's too short, I really enjoy Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse. The way he speaks is just so compelling, and he brings a lot of presence and weight to the part. I think most of that is due to the fact that Oscar Isaac himself is a very solid actor, and he's one of those guys where he can make mostly anything work. Kind of like Jake Gyllenhaal. Regardless of the movie, Jake Gyllenhaal always gives a pretty damn good performance, even if the movie itself isn't that good. It's kind of how Oscar Isaac and Pedro Pascal are. They're usually the best parts of like any movie they're in. I generally prefer like 90% of the X-Men movies more than most of the MCU. And this is even after a rewatch of them both, not even just the new MCU stuff. I've always had like a mixed relationship with the X-Men films, but when they're good, they're pretty damn good. But overall, there's more movies in the MCU that I personally enjoy over the X-Men films. I remember like 3 or 4 years ago, I thought the MCU was generally better than the X-Men films, only because the X-Men franchise's lows were just way lower than the MCU's. But now that's been changing, and I think the MCU has more stinkers now than the X-Men franchise does. The Snyderverse could have been a great rivalry for the MCU. Yeah, I agree. I think it would have offered something very different that the MCU was offering. And at the time, a lot of people didn't like that, obviously, but now more people than ever are looking back going, you know what, maybe it wasn't that bad at all. It was something completely different. The Kingsman is one of the best comic book films ever. I'm not exactly sure which one you're talking about. Do you mean the 2021 prequel called The Kingsman? Or do you mean like the actual first Kingsman movie called The Secret Service? I mean, I did a video on all three of them, and I really like the franchise, despite just how different each movie really is. I think the first one is definitely top tier, but the two sequels, not too much. I think Hancock is one of the best superhero movies ever made. Hancock is like very entertaining for about half the movie. I think the second half is not nearly as strong as the first half. The setup is really cool, the humor is great, Will Smith is awesome, but I think the third act just isn't the best. It's still a very entertaining movie and a really cool idea, especially for like what, 2008, 2009 when that came out. It's really a shame they never could get a sequel off the ground. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland are all equally good as Spider-Man. No, sir, that's incorrect. Bully Maguire trumps them all. I like Morbius. There, I said it. Took him back to the good old 2000s, when comic book flips were just dumb fun. I remember saying this back in my Morbius review. I think the movie is just so damn boring. Like, it's not so bad it's good, and it's not outright terrible. It's just kind of dull. Yeah, definitely not as bad as everyone says, but I still personally don't think it's that good of a movie. Hellboy 2019 is underrated. You know what's funny? I've only ever seen the movie one time, and I completely forgot everything about it. Although I do remember not liking it. I just greatly prefer Del Toro's Hellboy movies. I think they're very fun and have a lot of charm. Oh my, would you look at the time. This is the section of the video where I look for the best clickbait title that you guys suggested. So, let's take a look.
Relax and take notes while I take jokes of the marijuana smokes. Oh, you wanna
nice clickbait title. I think I'll take it. The first Ant-Man is in the top 10 MCU movies. Disagree. Edgar Wright's influence before he left the project and Paul Rudd are really what make that movie entertaining. I actually liked Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles. I mean, I enjoyed that movie about as much as I enjoyed any other Michael Bay film. I just generally find his style pretty entertaining because it's loud, flashy, in your face, and obnoxious. That's why I enjoyed his Transformers films so much. They're just fucking bizarre and out there. Okay, we got a couple here, but I'm only gonna talk about this one. Spider-Verse is the best superhero movie. I don't know how you can say that when Venom 2 is right there. I mean, in terms of animated superhero movies, it's definitely up there. And superhero movies just in general, it's definitely top tier. But I don't know, man, there's just like certain movies I would just put above it. Infinity War, for example. The whole superhero fatigue thing is a myth, and an excuse for companies putting out mediocre product. Put out quality shows and movies, and people will keep coming back. This can go for any movie genre. Tom Cruise did a quality sequel to a 37-year-old movie last year, and look how that went. Now, I think two things can be true at once. A lot of people are kind of burnt out in the superhero genre, and and a lot of these companies are just putting out mediocre products. Zack Snyder's Justice League is better than Age of Ultron and the first Avenger movies. However, it's not better than Infinity War and Endgame. Is that really a hot take? I mean, I don't like Age of Ultron, like, at all. It's okay at best. And I enjoyed the first Avenger movie for what it is. But I definitely think Zack Snyder's Justice League is better than both of them. Though I would definitely rank Infinity War above Zack Snyder's Justice League, although I'm not that sure about Endgame. I'm personally just not the biggest fan of Endgame, though it's understandable to still put it above Zack Snyder's Justice League. Marvel isn't on a decline in quality. People are just burnt out on the same formula and tropes that have plagued this franchise for over a decade. I mean, people are definitely fed up and tired of the tropes, but Marvel have definitely been relying on those tropes more now than ever in the last 5 years. But there's been a sharp decline in quality since Endgame, although these tropes really started popping up in like 2014, 2015. So I think it's both of them. People actually are fed up because the quality has dropped a lot, and they're relying on the same tropes and formula more than ever. The Blade trilogy is better than MCU Phase 2 and 4. Also, I think Thor: The Dark World is underrated. You know, I did a video on this a while ago, but there's only 2 good Blade movies. That's the first 2. Third one definitely sucks. And there are movies in both Phase 2 and 4 I think are just on par or even better than the first 2 Blade movies. Even in Phase 4, I think Spider-Man No Way Home is damn good. And for as much as I like Blade, I just like Spider-Man more. Also, you think Thor: The Dark World is underrated?
You need to be locked up! Away from decent, normal people!
Wonder Woman 1984 is better than Wonder Woman 2017 in every way except for everything with Steve Trevor. Funny because I think the opposite. Wonder Woman 2017 is better than Wonder Woman 1984 in every way including everything with Steve Trevor. All-Star Superman is hella mid. Now, All-Star Superman is good. The issue is people on the internet just fucking sucking it off as like the only good Superman story. I mean, it's definitely the best one in like recent times. I say recent, but this comic is almost 2 decades old. Black Adam is better than all Phase 4 MCU movies. Now, I wouldn't put it above Spider-Man No Way Home or Doctor Strange 2. Though honestly, Black Adam is pretty entertaining, although it's just derivative as hell. It doesn't bring anything new to the table, and it feels like it takes different parts from different comic book movies and just mashes it together. I still had fun with it, and I think I had more fun with it than other stuff in the MCU Phase 4. So you're not too far off with that statement. Although Doctor Strange 2 and Spider-Man No Way Home are definitely better. The Walking Dead comics are worse compared to the show. The show has ups and downs, but at least it doesn't feel like an edgy 13-year-old wrote it. I mean, personally, I think the show fell off after season like 4 or 5. But as for the comic, I haven't read all of it because that shit ran for like, what, 15 years? So I never finished it. But from what I read, yeah, it's some very edgy material. It kind of borders on like edgelord territory. From what I can gather, it's basically Robert Kirkman's whole shtick. That's just the way he writes his comics. And yeah, it can be pretty off-putting. Honestly, it's kind of like The Boys comics, except less nihilistic. Although The Boys show is definitely much better than The Boys comic. I read a few issues of The Boys comic and I'm like, yeah, nah, I'm good. Most of the MCU shows are extremely mid and underwhelming. Yeah, I agree, and honestly, I don't even think that's a hot take. Alan Moore's Watchmen was okay, but the movie, I'm assuming that's what he's doing with these emojis. Yeah, I agree. I actually prefer the movie over the comic. And it's only because Alan Moore gets really pretentious with this fucking comic book, and at points I think the comic gets too far up its own ass. Like, if you remember in the movie, in the Ultimate Cut, they have those scenes where it's the kid reading the comic book, and then it goes to what's happening inside the comic book, and everything in the comic book is like an allegory of what's happening, you know, within the movie. Yeah, so that's actually in the Watchmen comic. So at times, you'll have chapters where you just follow pieces of this story, so it's a comic within a comic. That's an allegory for the events that are happening inside that comic in the world. And not to mention, there are times where it cuts to like a documentary, I believe, that's inside that universe of Night Owl, and it kind of splices in at different moments to like add more context to different scenes and characters and whatnot. Basically, it just has a whole lot going on, and I see why they cut this stuff out just to tell like the story itself, and instead leave that stuff to like the bonus features. Still not a bad comic, and I see why it was so popular when it came out in the 80s, and it's really good critique on the comic book genre at the time. But yeah, I just think there's things the movie just did better. James Gunn's movies were never good. Nah, they're pretty good. I mean, the only ones I'm not the biggest fan of were The Suicide Squad and Slither, really. Not a movie, but I gotta say this. Arkham City is overrated. I'm more of an Arkham Origins guy myself. Batman Year 1 is overrated. Now, Year 1 is definitely really good, but I think it's just that people are so used to like that story of Batman. You know, that's like his quintessential origin story that everyone goes to. So really, most people are just tired of hearing it. Everyone knows it frontwards and backwards. So I think it's easy to look at and be like, yeah, it's okay. Aquaman is bad.
Hey! Ain't nobody trying to hear that bullshit.
Nah, I said it before and I'll say it again. I love Aquaman. This shit's pretty fucking awesome. James Wan is a goat. The DC animated universe is better than the DC EU and MCU. I think it started off better, and it adapted some pretty good comic book storylines, but towards the end, the quality started to really go up and down. And it felt like some events and storylines didn't really matter or carry over into like the larger whole of the whole universe. So I wouldn't call it better, but it has its moments where it definitely shines. Although they fucked up Batman Hush, so that's kind of unforgivable. I think Dwayne Johnson deserves more credit for bringing Henry Cavill back. He knew what fans wanted and went for it. I also think Black Adam is a pretty good movie. Like, I will give The Rock a lot of credit because he definitely wanted to please the fans. That was his big goal the entire time when promoting Black Adam, and he definitely went through great lengths to get Henry Cavill back. So yeah, I definitely give him credit for trying to please the fans. Infinity War is mid.
That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard, nigga!
Watchmen is better than the majority of Marvel movies now. Bro, since day one, the Watchmen movie has been better than most comic book movies. So jot that down. I think it's like what Christopher Nolan said. The Watchmen movie was definitely made a little bit too soon, given how much comic book movies have blown up in popularity in like the 2010s. But also because of that, it's basically aged like wine. Okay guys, I think it's gonna do it for all the unpopular opinions. Definitely had a lot of fun this go around. And so, what I want you to do now is leave your unpopular opinion down below. And I'm gonna make a game out of it. Whoever posts the most interesting unpopular opinion gets the pinned comment. So go ahead and leave your hottest take. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, go and drop a like on it. And we'll give a nice big shout out to the channel members. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, click the join button down below and check out the perks. If it interests you, consider joining. Or not, it don't matter.
Alright! This one's going into my cringe compilation.
And nobody likes you, and you have no friends, and you're a loser. And you deserved it. Okay? There's nothing Giga Chad. There's no big energy here. It's just you being a little crybaby bitch.